because most people think that when they hear the word non-duality, that everybody's talking about the same thing. Because in duality, there could be so many different types of dualities. But in non-duality, it must be all the same. But in fact, that's not the case. There are many flavors and varieties of even non-duality. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Many people, I don't know how much you're familiar with Indian philosophy, but there's an ancient Indian philosophy that's called Shiva Shakti. Some of you may have heard of it. It's called the non-dual philosophy. And what it says is that Shiva is consciousness and Shakti is the power of consciousness, and they're inseparable. They're non-dual. They're Shiva, they're Shakti, but they're not separate, like one hand, Shiva, Shakti. So that's a type of non-duality. Yes, that's called Shaivism. There's another type which is quite similar, which is called Kashmiri Shaivism. I'll just give some examples, which says that everything is pure consciousness, and that consciousness does the dance of the universe, so that the universe is just the play of consciousness. So the universe and the consciousness, again, are not separate. Non-duality. There was a 15th century philosopher in India by the name of Vallabhacharya, and he came up with, his philosophy was called pure non-dualism, Shuddha Advaita. And what he said was that there's a supreme being, and that supreme being got bored or something, and so for the fun of it, he created the world. And then after creating the world, he entered into it, pervading every atom and every fiber of it, so that that supreme being and this world are non-dual. It's another type of non-duality. It's a creator, it's a creation. The creator entered into his creation. And that's called non-dualism. The type of non-duality that I'm talking about is different from all of this business. It's an ancient Indian philosophy, in fact, the most ancient of all Indian philosophies. And it comes from a bunch of texts that are called the Upanishads. Has everybody heard of the Upanishads? These are the most ancient of all Indian philosophical texts. Nothing predates this. There's nothing older than this. This predates it's probably the oldest philosophical text in the world. They generally, most scholars put the Upanishads at about 600 to 800 BC. That means 200 to 300 years before Gautama Buddha was born, there were some people running around in India teaching this Upanishad non-duality. So let me see if, first of all, I can give you kind of an idea of what that idea is. In Sanskrit, in those Upanishads, there are some famous statements. One is, Sarvam idam Brahmam. All this, that means everything that you see, this whole universe, Sarvam idam Brahmam, is Brahman alone. Brahman is the Sanskrit word which means the absolute reality. All of this multiplicity is that absolute reality. And then they describe the absolute reality as follows. Ekam Advitiyam, which means one without a second. There's no other reality here. There's just one reality. There's no Shiva and Shakti. There's no play of consciousness. There's no God that created the world and entered into it. None of that. So that's a type of non-duality that is different, you can see, than the other types of non-duality. So that's one point. If people were to think, oh, you're a non-dualist, I'm a non-dualist, then we believe the same thing. I'll give you just two more examples. In the Buddhist tradition, there are also non-dualist traditions. And for example, for those who may have studied some Buddhism, you may have heard form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. That means that they're non-dual. Form is not different from emptiness. And emptiness is not different from form. They're non-dual. That's a type of non-duality. But it doesn't deny that there is form. It's just that that form is empty. Empty means empty of any inherent nature. So it's empty, but it doesn't mean that there's no form. It's just that that form, its very nature is to be empty. It doesn't have any true nature. So that emptiness is not something separate from form. If you take form away, there's no emptiness. They're inseparable. That's another type of non-duality. But the type of non-duality that I'm talking about tonight is different than that. There's no form. There's no power. There's no anything. There's no world. There's no duality at all in any sense. So having said that, immediately people should say this is the most ridiculous of all the philosophies that have ever came, because it's so obviously against our common everyday experience. It contradicts the most fundamental fact that I know, that I'm experiencing a world of duality. So to say that there never was a world, there's no world now, I'm not talking, you're not hearing me, what kind of business is this? So the first thing is, the type of non-duality that I'm talking about is the most suspect. There's another unique thing about this non-dual reality. Oh, let me just say something about that non-dual reality. That's the only reality, and there's nothing other than it. Generally in Sanskrit, they describe that reality as Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss. But those words, existence, consciousness, bliss, has to be understood in a very technical sense, because this thing exists, but where does it exist? It exists on the table, so it exists in space. And when does it exist? It exists in time. It's now existing. There was a time when it didn't. So it's existence in time and space. Whenever we think of anything existing, we always have to think of it existing in time and space. But this Sat, the existence of Brahman, is not in time and space. Obviously, it's pretty hard to conceive of something that exists, but it's not in time or space. But that's what Sat existence means. It's consciousness, but it's not consciousness like when I say I'm conscious of that wall, or I'm conscious of my thoughts, or I'm conscious of my feelings. It's consciousness bereft of any object. In other words, if you could just in your mind say, you're conscious of a flower. I'm conscious of the flower. Now if somehow you could take the flower away, consciousness bereft of all objects is called Chit. And then Ananda is bliss. Bliss doesn't mean the happiness we get when we eat a good ice cream or when we come in contact with pleasurable things. Because all of those happinesses are caused by something. But this is bliss not caused by anything. Existence beyond time and space, consciousness bereft of all objects, and bliss not caused by anything. That's Brahman. There's no philosophy in the history of human thought that ever believed this, taught this, or even had an imagination about this. Nobody accepted it. Anyone who ever heard of it, any other philosophy, criticized it. That's why there's different schools of Indian philosophy and Western philosophy. So, even though it's the most ancient, the most unbelievable, this is exactly what it was saying. By the way, this philosophy is not a dead philosophy. It's alive and well. There are people who study it, teach it, believe in it. You can go to India and find places where they teach this thing. So, from 8th century BC till today, it's a living tradition of this type of non-duality. And the third unique thing about it that makes it relevant for us, and this is the most unbelievable part of the whole business, is that that infinite, immortal bliss, which is the only reality, is who you are. You are that. That non-dual, infinite, unchanging, beyond time and space bliss. That's who you are. You're not going to become that when you drop dead, when you go to heaven, when you raise your kundalini or whatever you got. That is your eternal nature. Everyone, you may have heard the famous saying, you are that, right? Nisargadatta said, I am that. So the Upanishad says, Tattvamasi, you are that. It doesn't say you'll become that after you meditate for 40 years. It doesn't say you'll merge into that if you do this, this, or this. It's a statement of fact. You are that, right here, right now. You don't have to go to heaven. You don't have to change your clothes or put on a new, change your name, repeat a mantra, whatever. Because it's, you are that, here and now. Whether you know it or not, it doesn't matter. You're that. So that's quite a unique thing that's also quite unbelievable. Because I'm this. What do you mean I'm that? I'm this. I was born, I'm getting old, I got problems, my boyfriend, my job, I'm this and this is mine, this is my house, my country, I know who I am. I'm definitely not whatever you're talking about. So the whole thing seems quite silly. So in order to appreciate, how could it be possible that there's just one reality, and that reality is me? I am infinite bliss. I'm not in time, so I was never born. I'm never going to die. How could I believe that? Is this religion? Is it a faith? Some old book said it, or some guy with a long beard said it? Is that why I should believe this? Or some yogi who was meditating on his belly button for 40 years said it? Here's the real unique point about this. That Brahman, that absolute reality, which is not in time, which is consciousness bereft of object, which is infinite bliss, is the witness of every one of your thoughts right here and right now. The witness of your thoughts right here and right now, including the thought, I am Ira, I am a world-renowned Advaita. This business, that thought, or I'm a scoundrel, oh boy, I really messed up, oh, I'm doing whatever our idea about ourselves, this ego is who we think we really are. When anybody asks you, who are you? I am so-and-so. I have these parents. I was brought up here. I live here. And this is what I do for a living. I have children. I don't have children. This is me. I am this. And this is mine. My money. My house. My car. My wife. My children. I am this and this is mine. These ideas, I am this and this is mine, are objects to you. They appear to you just like any other thought. Every thought is an object to you. That witnessing consciousness that's in you, that's witnessing every thought right here, right now, that's never hidden, that never goes away. Suppose you say, I don't believe in it. This is bullshit. Oh, that's interesting. Whatever thought, it has to be an object to a subject. You're the subject of every thought. In Sanskrit it's called Priti Bodha Viditam Matam. It's known with every thought, because no thought can appear unless it appears in that witnessing consciousness. No thought can be an object unless that subject is there. But what happens when the object goes? Suppose in between two thoughts, or if the thoughts stop, what happens to that witness in you? If the thoughts are there, you're the witness of it. If the thoughts are not there, you're the witness of the absence. There was nothing appearing. How do you know there were no thoughts? Because I'm the witness. Now let me take this a little further. Not only am I the witness of all of these thoughts, but I'm the witness of time. Here's one very important fact about the subject and the object. If I'm the subject and the thoughts are the object, whatever the object is, it doesn't affect the subject in any way. I am thin. The subject's not thin. I am fat. The subject's not fat. I am happy. The subject's not happy. I am sad. The subject's not sad. Time. Does time appear? Is it an object to you? Then the subject is not in time. There's some times when time is appearing, yes? Is there any times when time is not appearing?
Yes.
How do you know? Because it's my experience. I wasn't aware of time at all. When? Well, I was in deep sleep. I didn't even know about time. That witnessing consciousness in everyone is exactly the same. In the Bhagavad Gita, it describes it like this. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhuteshu. That witnessing consciousness that's in me. What color is that witness, by the way? Anybody know the color of that witness?
White.
It's white. Polka dot. It has no color because it's the witness of colors. How big is it? Is it very tall? Is it very short? Is it? What qualities does it have? It's the witness of all the qualities, but it has no qualities. So, the witness in me and the witness in you can't be different. The same self in everybody. It's the same. My mind is different than your mind. But the witness of the mind is exactly the same for everyone. It never changes. It's never hidden. When you're awake, it's here. But the best way to see this witnessing consciousness, to validate for yourself that it's not hooked up to this body, because I think I am this, and this body is the conscious, this is a conscious body. If you cut it, it feels it. And my senses are conscious because I can see through my senses, so my senses are conscious. And my mind, of course, is conscious. Although some people. But the fact of the matter is, the body is an object to me, my senses are an object to me, and my thoughts and my mind are an object to me. They have no consciousness at all. But that's another subject. The way to see this, the most clear, in your own experience, is to just reflect on your experience of dream. If for just a moment you could shake off this identification, and that's exactly what happens. As soon as the dream appears, now I'm in the jungle and I'm worried about that tiger over there, and I'm thinking that if I talk to my friend, now it's a whole different time, a whole different space. I'm there in the dream. I'm talking to my friend about the tiger. But the whole dream, I'm witnessing, yes? I'm the witness of the dream. Nobody else. Just one witness for the whole dream. And in that witness, me, the dream subject, the dream world was an object, all of the time and the space and the causality, the whole thing is appearing to me. If the guy in the dream gets cut, am I cut? Whatever happens to that dream ego, because as soon as I wake up, I say, it's only a dream. It didn't affect me. But now I'm stuck here. So the real question is, just like I was the witness of my dream state, am I the witness of my waking state? When the dream appears, we can see the waking is not sitting somewhere. It's totally canceled. For the time being, there's no more waking. The dream is in fact waking. That's what I mean by a dream. That state, when you're in it, you think it's waking. It's not until you wake up, oh, it was only a dream. So as soon as that dream appears, this waking is 100% canceled. It's easy to see it the other way. When I wake up and my waking state appears to me, does anybody here think that their dream world is still existing somewhere? When I woke up, that tiger that I saw in the dream, is he still sitting there waiting to get me? There was no tiger there. It was just a dream. There was no real tiger there, right? It appeared like it at the time, for the time being. But as soon as I woke up, I realized there was no really tiger there. Yes? So it's not that when the dream ends, the dream world is sitting there. The dream world is concomitant with the dream state. Has anyone seen their dream world when they're not dreaming? You can maybe remember it, but you're not going to see it, because as soon as you wake up, the dream ended, the dream world ended. But here's the difference with our waking state. When my waking state ends, I believe that my waking world continues, even though no one has experienced their waking world independent of their waking state. If there's anyone here who has, please raise your hand. The waking world appears concomitant with my waking state. As soon as the waking comes, the dream is canceled totally. As soon as my dream state comes, my waking is canceled totally. That means the waking ego, Ira, this guy here, who's 6 foot this and weighs this guy came with the waking. When he went and the dream came, hey, I'm 6'6". I've been working out pretty good. I must have been going to the dream gym. Because the waking ego appears to me and the dream ego appears to me. They both cancel each other. I'm the witness of both of them, unaffected by any of them. Anyone follow me? Okay. Let me show you one other thing. It's not that just we have waking and dream. Because in the waking state, there's the waking ego. In the dream state, there's the dream ego. But has anyone had a state in which they're not aware of the waking or the dream? Do we ever have a state in which I didn't know myself, I didn't know the world, I didn't know time, I didn't know my bank account, I didn't know my wife?
Experiences.
I have.
You've had that experience.
Sometimes I've meditated,
In meditation,
and then I've disappeared, and then something I know because I woke up,
come back.
but I wasn't thinking of anything.
So we can have certain meditative states in which I'm not aware of the waking or the dream, right? They both gone. How about if I take a bat and hit someone over the head? Will the waking and dream go at that point? In a coma?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. But we don't have to get so esoteric here. Has anyone ever gone into deep sleep? That's everybody. You meditate. You don't meditate. But we all sleep. That's why the beauty of this type of analysis is it doesn't depend on whether you've meditated or whether you're a big yogi or a little yogi or whatever you are. This is just an examination of your common, everyday, universal, undeniable experience. Your subjective experience of the three states. So my experience, I'll talk and you see if it's your experience. If it's not, you'll stop me. In deep sleep, I'm not aware of Ira, I'm not aware of the waking time, waking space. The whole thing has disappeared. So this examination brings out a point. Most people here think like this. I'm awake. I'm awake now, yes? And then I had a dream. Ira had a dream. And then Ira was in deep sleep. I didn't know anything. And then Ira woke up, and here I am. As though there's one ego, Ira, passing through three states. But if you examine it, you'll see the waking Ira is stuck in the waking state. In dream, a dream Ira was operating. And in deep sleep, there was no ego appearing. So the idea that there's one ego passing through three states is against everyone's experience. Is there something common that's in all the states? That's not coming and going? That's not getting canceled?
Our awareness.
That awareness, that witnessing consciousness. This brings about some very interesting conclusions. One is, I'm not this ego. I'm not this body, and I'm not this mind and senses, because they appeared to me in the waking body, mind, ego. In the dream, I see a dream body, mind, ego, and even they disappeared to me. When I go like this, me, to me, I'm sorry I can't push through. To me, I don't mean this, I mean that witnessing. To me, that's the me that never changes. That's not coming and going. It's present during the waking. It's present during the dream, and it's still there in deep sleep. That's how I know nothing was appearing, because I'm still there. The witness of the absence of the objects. What happens now? Now I can see that thing the Upanishads was talking about, that there's only one reality without a second. And guess what? I'm the only reality here. The waking was as false as the dream. And in deep sleep, I'm still there. So I'm the only thing that's unchanging. I'm not in time. I'm not in space. I am immortal bliss. That bliss is called the non-dual reality. There's nothing other than that. Because a dream is something that appears to exist, but in truth has no existence. The only truth of that whole dream was me. It was me that appeared like the dream tiger, the dream people, the dream Ira. It's me that appears as this waking, and it's me that remains whether the appearance is there or not. That's why this teaching is not religion. This is not religion. I have no use for religion. I have no interest in it. Religion has been the scourge of this planet right now. The biggest problem is religion. What do I mean by religion? A blind faith that my scripture is the correct one, and if I do this, when I die, something. Blind faith. But once a Jew has a blind faith about his Torah, and a Christian has a blind faith about his Bible, and a Mohammedan,
Muslim.
there you go, a Muslim has a faith that only the Prophet got, then of course. But if we can base something that's not a blind faith, but something that everybody can validate, verify, here and now, in their own experience, that's not religion. It's based on experience, it culminates in experience, and it refers to an actual thing. That self is an actual thing that you can realize. You don't have to go anywhere to the Himalayas, you don't have to drop dead. This can be realized because it's everyone's self. It's kind of like this. An empirical example. There's only one space, empirically we say, right? Space is all-pervading, right? So if I were to take 3 cups, yes? 3 empty clay cups. And then I say, you see in this cup here? Oh, and they're different sizes, the cups. You see in this cup, this is small space. This is a big cup. We got big space. And this is a vase cup, a very big space. Now I want to move the space in this cup over here. So we can move the space. And then if you look in there, you know, the space in here looks a little dirty. There seems to be dust and smoke. In here, all of this business about big space, little space, moving space, can't be true, because space is indivisible. In fact, the very wall of the cup is space. Space can't be divided, but we talk about it like that. So, when I say you, that's the space divided that in your cup, and you in your cup. But the space, who you really are and who you really are, the same. There's only one self in everybody. Ek Atma Sarva Bhuteshu, that one self who is in everyone. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Kshetrajna chapi mam vidi sarva kshetreshu. Hey Arjuna, you know that witness in you? That's me. That's God. That's the God. Why is that witness in you God? He's all-knowing. In the dream, let's look at the dream. How many knowers are there knowing this dream? One. Is there any other knowers? So he's the only one who knows the whole dream. Number one. Is there any place in that dream where that consciousness is not? Can you go someplace and find out where there's no consciousness? Wherever you go, you got to go in that witnessing consciousness. So that means it's all pervading. In reference to the dream, that witness is all knowing and all pervading. What about if I were to take the witness away? What would happen to the dream? Gone, right? That means the dream world, the dream universe is being supported. It has no existence apart from me. That means I'm all powerful, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. Isn't that what the definition of God is?
Right.
You are God. That's from the point of view of the dream awaking. But how about if you take away the waking in the dream? Are you omniscient? There's nothing to know. Are you omnipresent? There's nothing to pervade. Are you all-powerful, upholding the whole universe? There's no universe. So from the point of the universe, you're God. But from the point of view of absolute truth, you're the only reality, one without a second. That's your eternal nature. You can't get rid of it, you can't think of it. So that's the first point I wanted to make, that this type of non-duality is not the same as every type of non-duality. That non-duality is yourself, and that self is the witness of your thoughts right here and right now. Everybody in this room, without exception, I'll include myself, thank you, wants to be happy. Anybody here doesn't want to be happy? Everybody. You don't really have to go to school to learn that we want to be happy. It's natural. We want to be happy, number one. And number two, does anyone here want to die? Somebody might, because they're so goddamn miserable with this life, that might make them happy. But in general, we don't want to die. We're mortal. We would like to be immortal. But to be immortal, that means continuing forever miserable would be worse than just ending it. But what about, I want to be infinitely happy forever? Anyone want to sign up for that? So these are the things we want. I want to be peaceful. I want to be happy. I don't want to die. And the truth of the matter is, I am immortal. My nature's infinite bliss, and I'm never going to die. What does that tell us? If it is true that my nature is that, but I've considered myself to be unhappy, mortal, and limited, there must be a mistake. There must be a mistake. So let me just spend 1 minute about what is the mistake that we've all made, every one of us here. And then, you see, unlike religion, this is not to be believed because somebody said it, or some scripture said it, or some yogi said he had some special experience that you haven't had, so you don't know this stuff. And if you join my club and pay me every month, I'll teach you how to get this thing. This is not like that at all. The witness is the subject. The body is an object. The witness is a subject. My thoughts are objects. But everybody has taken the subject for the object. I've mixed up myself for the not self. Because if I ask anybody here, who are you? You'll say, oh, I'm so-and-so. I live to I, the witnessing consciousness, which is always present, it's never hidden. It's always shining. You can't think it away. Try to think it away. What will you do? Because either the thought's there, if the thoughts stop, how do you know they stopped? On the basis of that witnessing consciousness, the presence and absence. You can't, if you say, I deny it, it's only because that consciousness is there that you can affirm anything. Oh yeah, there's a witness. Oh no, there's no witness. In either case, those are objects to you. So the only ignorance, and the only reason we suffer, and the only reason we become mortal, is because I've mixed up myself, who I really am, with who I'm not. This is called ignorance. It's a mistake. It's just a clear, out and out mistake based on your own experience. There's no other, only because you haven't determined what is the subject and what is the object, everyone goes, I am fact. I am fair. I am smart. I am sad. I'm taking the I and mixing it up with all things that appear to me. This misconception is natural to everybody. Until somebody points out to you that you've made the mistake, you never know it. It's so natural to feel that I am this, that unless somebody can give you a little push in that direction so that you can see that this ego who I'm so identified with can't possibly be me. It's an object to me. It has nothing to do with me. You can see how this teaching is a very subjective teaching. You have to look at this from the point of view of your own experience. When you look at this world not from that subjective point of view, but from the objective point of view, then this world is real. Of course it's real. He's real. I can see him, touch him, smell him, feel. This is real. That's the test of reality. Science is real. Evolution is real. The whole 15 billion years of the Big Bang, right up to the solar system, the planets, the water, the one-celled amoeba, primates, Homo sapiens, it's all real. Just like in the dream scientist tells you the whole dream real. But from the subjective point of view, the point of view of your own experience, then the whole picture changes. So this teaching is not against science. In the waking state, science is 100% correct. And we should go 100% with science. If I want to know how fast light goes, I'm not going to look in the Bible. If I want to know how DNA works, I'm not going to look in the Torah. I'm not going to look in the Upanishads either. But if I want to make an examination of my own experience, and on the basis of that come to a conclusion, this becomes as clear as the fruit on the palm of your hand. Nothing could be so obvious, so clear, so indubitable, because it's your own self. There's nothing so near, nothing so intimate. We've all are in the grips of this ignorance of taking myself to be what I'm not, the not self. Once I've taken myself to be this, and I exist from the tip of those toes right up to here, this is me, this is not me. Anything out here is good. Don't touch this, but everything out here is good. So this is me. Now here's a problem. Once this is me, you know what has to happen? I have to get old and sick and die. That's the nature of this thing. There's no, above this, finito. You know anyone who's been here longer than 120 years? Everyone came and everyone went, and this body's going to come and go too. In the blink of an eye, it'll be gone. But from the point of view of your own experience, you were never born. You will never get sick. You don't get old. You are nothing but infinite bliss. You have no desire for anything. You have no fear of anything. There's no second thing to you to be afraid of. But in my ignorance, I am this. This identification with the body is death. And once I'm this, then I'm seeking happiness and I'm trying to avoid death, even though I know it's coming. And even though I know no matter how much happiness I get, it's going to be fleeting. That Haagen-Dazs, when it touches the tongue, great. But soon, if I keep eating it, that same Haagen-Dazs that was making me happy, you know what? Why is it, if that thing was the source of my happiness, now why is it causing me so much discomfort now? It can't be the Haagen-Dazs. It has to be that the desire, when that mind, when we finally get the thing that we want, the mind for a second becomes quiet. And in that quiet mind, the bliss of the self is reflected. We attribute it to the object. But if it was really the object, my wife makes me happy. If my wife was the source of the happiness, she'd make everybody happy. But when I talk, you do. So, my kids, they see it differently. So the happiness is not in the objects. And this ignorance is the only cause, this ignorance of falsely identifying with something that I'm not. And then I'm looking for the happiness. I'm looking for what I already am. And so let me tell you a story. I tell this almost every year, but now there's new faces. And this is a story that you can take with you because it's so exactly what I'm talking about, and it's kind of funny, which is this. I'll give you the abbreviated because this can go on. There was a guru who had 10 disciples. One head disciple. And he said, he's in the north, I want you guys to go to South India and visit a temple and have what's called darshan at the temple. It'll be very beautiful. And then you come back and report to me what you saw. And you are making you in charge of these 9 other guys. You got it covered?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm holding you responsible. Go. They take off. They travel to the south of India, they go to the famous temple, they all have the darshan in the temple, and then they're coming back to tell the guru about their experience. And they come to a river. On the side of the river is a boatman, and he's got a small boat, and they go up to him, and the boatman says, what are you guys up to? Oh, our guru sent us to that temple. We just had darshan, and now we're returning. We're so happy. The boatman says, I'm very happy for you. Have a good journey. So then the head guy looks at his other 9 guys, and he asks them a question. Can everybody swim? They all said, yes, we're great swimmers. Jump in. So they jump in, they swim across the river, and when they get to the other side, the head guy says, hold it. I want to make sure everybody got across safely. I'm going to do a count. So he goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh my God, the 10th monk is missing.
I'm so sorry.
You're in trouble now. He says, don't panic. Everyone can swim. He must be somewhere spread out. We're going to find the 10th monk. So half of them go up the banks this way, the other half go up this way. They're looking under the rugs. Rugs? No, they're looking under rocks. There's no rugs on this beach. They're looking behind things. They come back. Anything? Not even a clue. And they all start to cry. Especially the head guy. You're in trouble. Meanwhile, you remember that boatman who they saw on the other side? He sees them, and he sees they're all crying. They were so happy. He gets into his boat, he goes over, and he goes up to the head guy. He says, "You guys were so happy. You look so sad now. What happened?"
I lost the monk.
You lost a monk. How many were you when you left?
10.
How many are you now?
10.
I thought you lost one.
Well, 9 plus. Oh, come on.
Why are you sad now? We came 10 and now we're only 9. The 10th monk is missing. The boatman looks at me and says, "One second. You say you came 10? Yes. You say you're 9 now? Yes. He says, don't worry. I will produce the 10th man. So the 9th man goes, you're going to produce the 10th man? We've looked up. I will. Well, when I go to heaven, I'm going to see the dead 10th man in heaven. I'm going to produce the 10th man right here and right now. Okay, got nothing to lose. Go ahead, produce him. Before I produce him, I want you to do one last thing. One more time, count the people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where's the 10th man? And the boatman looks at him and goes, you are the 10th man. At that second, when he heard that sentence, he produced the 10th man because it was just ignorance. He was already what he was searching for.
Right.
But in his ignorance, having forgotten to count himself, now the search was on. It's the same way with us. We're already that bliss. We are that immortality. But in our ignorance, we've taken ourselves to be something that we're not. And until somebody points this fact out to you, so that you can recognize it for yourself, this mistake won't go. That's the ignorance. So how is it that we can, it was fairly simple for the 9th man to realize, oh, I just made a silly mistake. But it's not quite that simple to realize that I've made a mistake about that I am this. The identification with this body is so thick. We are so this that for somebody to say you're not that body is almost meaningless. So how is it that we can come to realize this if you haven't already realized it? That inner witness is the most in. Does anybody, you can understand that? It's the most in because everything is an object. When I say in, I don't mean spatially in. It's the most inner, the very core of the whole thing is that witnessing consciousness. It's the most in. It's the most subtle. Because it has no form, no shape, no color, it's subtler than space. So in order to be able to realize this self, our minds have to become somewhat like that witness, which means what? All day long our minds are out on the world. How's the weather? How's the stock market? What's the party tonight? Where are we going to eat? What am I going to do? The new house, I'm going shopping for We're out. The mind is extrovert. When the mind is like this, that witness is 1 billion years away. There's no witness when the mind is out. But if this mind, even for a little while, you can restrain it and bring that mind back to the subject who's seeing all the thoughts. So the mind has to be made introvert. It has to be made subtle. It has to be made pure. When I mean pure, I don't mean, not in the Christian sense of don't think dirty thoughts or anything. All I mean by pure is when the mind is on the world is ceaselessly changing, impermanent. So as long as the mind is on the world, that monkey mind is in full play. What did he say? Oh, he said this, I'm jealous of that. This is how the mind is when it's out. When the mind turns back to that witness which never changes, that's all that's meant by a pure mind. When the mind is focused on that inner consciousness, that's always there. It's never hidden. It's only because the mind is out we don't take note of it. But even when the mind's out, it's shining. It's lighting up every thought of the extrovert mind. But we never take note of it. So the whole spiritual journey, not the religious journey, the whole spiritual journey is to take the mind and make it introvert so that we can recognize this truth about ourselves. When you realize, I am that, I've always been that. I will always be that. That's the only reality. There's nothing else here but me. I am the taste in grapes. I am the wetness in water. I am the lover who compares his beloved to the full moon. I am everything. That will put an end to the idea that I am a mortal that was born, getting old, getting sick, and is going to die. It's a question of what is the correct answer. It's not to be believed. It's not a religious belief. It's to see the fact of the matter, here and now, just like the 10th man, right now. You are the 10th man. He got it right then, right? Because it didn't take that much for it to it's not quite, if I tell somebody, you are that, as soon as they walk out of here, they're this, right? We go right back to that. So, now having said kind of like what the highest teaching is, and kind of what the basic idea of that, in order to recognize this, the mind has to be somewhat introvert, somewhat subtle, purified. So how do we go about this? The practical approach to this. How do I realize that I am that, and that realization will put an end to the whole life of suffering? As soon as I realize this truth, in my own experience. So how can I realize this? Well, this natural tendency of the mind to be extrovert, because we're convinced that the happiness is out there. If I have a nicer house, a nicer car, a nicer, or if people say I'm great, or if I get more power, or whatever, then I'll be happy. To appreciate some things, which is that all of these things are fleeting. This life is fleeting. We have a precious opportunity to realize this fact about ourselves, and if you want to just fritter it away, trying to get the little crumbs of happiness, these impermanent little things, in between bouts of unhappiness, then that's called samsara. But for the people that are fed up with that business, and they think, maybe there's a way I could be happy forever. Well, the way is not that way. The way is this way. We have to understand that the objects can never bring me lasting happiness. That whatever comes in time must go in time. To some extent, we have to get a little bit of detachment to the things that everybody else is so feverishly running after. That extrovert mind is the whole problem. Because as soon as you turn in, it's there. It's never it's not that if you don't turn in, it's not there. It's there whether you turn in or not, but we don't recognize it. So, there's a couple of things. I just came back from India recently. I'll give you one example. There's a place, hear of Rishikesh? Anybody hear of Rishikesh? So that's a place up in the Himalayas where they just teach this business that I'm talking about. That's, the whole town is about this. And in this town, there's they call it an ashram, it's really a university. It's called Kailash Ashram. There's 280 monks. They're wearing all orange, like this shirt right here. And they've renounced the world, and all they want to do is realize that I am that. They've decided that this is how they want to spend their life. So these 280 guys, they all have a little 8x10 cell there None of us would want this business, I'm sure. But I'm just giving you the example of what some people, and what they do is, they've simplified their life, they've pared down what they need to live to a minimum, and they're dedicating all of their time to reading about this, listening to lectures about this, writing about this, and practicing this on a daily basis, with the idea that they too want to realize that I am that. That's the only purpose that they're up there. So, one question comes, do we all have to go into some cave up in the Himalayas to realize this? I'm going to say no. But I will say that it might be easier up there. Yes? As an aid. Because our life is so filled with so many distractions and so many other things that unless we can figure out a way how to make our everyday life somehow connected to that, then we'll be lost in this life of birth, getting old, getting sick, and dying. They call that samsara. Taking the mind and yoking it to that. Does anybody know what that's called in Sanskrit? Yoga. Yoga's the practical sadhana, the spiritual. I said all we have to do is turn the mind back, but the mind doesn't want to go back. The mind wants out. Please, anything but this. No, because this seems like boring. This is not a good restaurant. This is not, because the mind wants, and this looks like, what is this, the witness? No. I'd much rather have a sports car. The witness is not going to get me laid. So those are the two things, sports car, laid, and good food. So I have no interest in this. Fine. Some people in their life, they mature enough to realize that, there's nothing wrong with all of that, but I don't think it's going to bring me what I really want. That's the beginning of spiritual life. Is there some way that I can get what I really want? Yoking your mind to that is yoga. So let me get a little more practical here. Remember I told you everybody here, including myself, is in full ignorance. And what that means is I'm identified with this body. This is who I am. Because I'm identified with this body, I can say I'm sitting in this chair now, and when I'm finished, I'm going to get up and go over there, because I'm fully identified with this body, just like everybody is. Because I'm identified with this body like everyone is, I can't stop doing actions for 1 second. Even if I say I'm going to go to the Himalayas, I'll sit in a cave and I won't do anything. Will you breathe? Yeah, breathe, what the hell. How about the bathroom? You're going to get up to go to the... Yeah, I got to go to the bathroom once in a while. So what do you mean you're not going to do anything? Are you going to be thinking? Yeah, think a little bit. So you'll be in full action. As long as you have a body and a mind, you can't stop doing actions for a second. So here's the trick. Since in our ignorance, because the witness, does that do any actions?
No.
So in my real nature, I'm actionless. I never do anything. But in my ignorance, I'm a doer. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a doer. And I'm doing things to get the result of that thing. My mind is on the result. I'm going to do it, get the result. If somehow, since we can't just stop doing actions, as long as I'm this body, I must act. If I could do my actions in such a way that somehow the action gets yoked to that supreme being, because you see, when I'm an actor, I'm a little nothing, because I'm this little body. Compared to this, that witness is what? It's like God, right? That's like God. It's myself. But when I'm this, that's like God. Okay. So now I'm an actor, I'm doing things. If I can somehow get into the attitude that I'm doing it not for the fruit, but I want to do it as an acknowledgement that everything that I do is only because of the grace of that light. Without that, I couldn't do anything. Does anyone know when we perform actions like that, what that might be called?
Karma yoga.
Karma yoga. Karma means actions. Yoked to that makes it karma yoga. When we lose our interest in the fruit of the action, and now the action is tied up to that supreme being, that light that's inside of me, that Paramatma, the supreme self, that's my true nature. Now, that very action, rather than taking me away from that, is taking me towards that. My mind is becoming purified, because now, you see, when I'm doing the thing to get the fruit, there's three possibilities. I might get the result. What happens if I get the result that I wanted? I'm happy. What happens if I don't get the result? Sad. That's called suki duki. Sanskrit. Sometimes happy, sometimes sad. It's inevitable. Right? We can never always get what we want, and we can never totally avoid what we don't want. So we're constantly in this thing of, but now if we've lost interest in the fruit's going to come. It'll come. But I've lost my interest in it because now I'm doing it as worship to that. That will purify the mind. That will make the mind more subtle. That pure, subtle mind is the only mind where you can finally cut the karma itself and say, even though this body is doing all these actions, I do nothing. The Gita, it says, Guna guneshu anuvartante, na kimchit karomi. The gunas are moving against the gunas. Gunas just means nature. So this is nature, and guess what? This is nature. This body, we separate as though this is nothing but matter. And this is nothing but matter, yes? So this matter is moving against this matter. Guna guneshu, na kimchit karomi. But I don't do anything. Because I'm the witness. It's the witness of all of the activities that's ever the same. I'm not in time. I can't change. This is what I mean by spirituality without religion. That if anybody kind of got a little inkling of what I'm trying to point out here in their own experience, then that's all that it is. It has nothing to do with believing what I said. If I told you, I've been going to India for 40 years. I meditate like crazy. I've had experiences that you guys can't even imagine. I'm on the 8th level of super consciousness right now. So you guys, if you want to join my thing, you can come and practice, and maybe in 40, then it would just be faith in me. But the thing that I'm telling you, the witness in me and the witness in you, there's no difference. And even if your mind is filled with nasty thoughts, and my mind is filled with angels, the witness is the same. It's the same in everyone. Sinner and saint. Doesn't matter. It's that same. So everybody can recognize this truth. If they have the motivation to see, is it really true? Because this should not be believed because anyone says it. Is there a witness of my thoughts that never changes? Is there a witness of the states of waking and dream that never changes? Is that a fact of my experience? My present experience, not a mystical experience, not some kind of special experience that only some people have. This is everyone's universal common experience that everybody, if they have the slightest bit of capacity to introvert their mind, they can recognize this fact. When I started this talk, I wanted to distinguish that my type of non-duality is the type in which there's only one truth and there's nothing else other than that. When I said that you're the witness of all of these thoughts, it sounds like, or the waking state and the dream state, that doesn't sound like non-duality. There's a witness and there's something witnessed. What kind of non-duality is that? Here's the point. You're the witness that never changes. And whatever's appearing or disappearing, the witnessed has no reality at all. For three reasons. One is that which didn't exist in the beginning and which doesn't exist in the end can't exist in the middle. Because from non-existence, existence can't come. And if it really existed, it couldn't become non-existent again. But the object, there was a time it wasn't appearing, and there's a time when it ceases to appear. It's changing. It can't be real. That which changes can't be real. And that which is real never changes. If you examine your experience, then you'll see there's only one reality that never changes. What's appearing has no reality. It never existed in the past. It didn't exist when it was appearing, and it didn't exist after it ceased. The truth of the appearance is the consciousness. It has no, when it appears, the object, it can't appear independently. Take the witness away, what happens to the object? Without the subject, no object. Take the object away, what happens?
The subject is there.
Subject is still there. That's how you know the object is gone. So there's only one reality. That's all that ever was, is, or will be, is you. All of this is you. You are everyone. You are the Buddha. You are Shankara. You are Jesus Christ. You are that. That one reality without a second. This is the unique teaching of the Upanishads. No duality ever. And you are that. And you, when it says you have to remember, you means the witness of your thoughts. So it's immediate. The witness of my thoughts is, because with every thought it has to be there. So I don't have to do any stand on my head. I don't have to join the whatever. Because with every thought, it's available. Object and subject. And to see that the objects are coming and going. But there's an unchanging, transcendental subject that's not in time. There's pure consciousness, bereft of object. There's pure bliss. one more point, which is this, because it's so beautiful. Everybody tonight, when you go to sleep, you are just remaining as that infinite bliss. Sleep is God. Sleep is reality. How I was in deep sleep with no second thing, no fear, no desires, no hopes, no limitations, no seeking for anything. In that state, total peace. No boredom. Oh, sleep is boring. I'm sorry. Boring is when you're sitting around and the clock is moving and there's nothing to do. Nobody's bored in deep sleep. When you wake up, you may say that's a boring sleep. But in deep sleep, there's no time. How we were in deep sleep, one without a second. That's how we are right now. Because our nature never changes. Whether the waking state appeared, I didn't become anything other than what I was. When the dream appeared, I'm still deep sleep. And when they both disappear, I'm still deep sleep. You only call it deep sleep from the waking point of view. But in deep sleep, is it deep sleep? Is there any world?
No.
Is there the absence of the world? Trick question. There's no world and there's no absence of the world. Oh, the world disappeared in deep sleep. You say that when you're awake.
That's right.
It's just you. And it's just you now. One reality without a second. I'm going to end it on that note, but
Yeah.
that's over. But at least 5 minutes, somebody might have a few questions. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Hi, Ira. In your past talks, that I've heard many, tonight's presentation was great, as usual, very inspirational, and each time I understand more. I know more. I know more, not really understand, but know. I think today you used the witness in very effective way to understand it, but actually, in the past, you have said at a certain point the witness disappears. Right, that's just another teaching, but this was very effective. But that's still true, right? Because we don't need to think of it at a certain point. That's gone too. But I don't want you to get into it because that's
No,
going to
just
take
very
all the time.
briefly. No, because it's a very good point. I tried to see, the self is called the witness only in relation to the witnessed. If the witnessed is an appearance, let me tell you what I mean. In Sanskrit, the word is called Maya. For those who don't know much about Sanskrit, Maya is made up of 2 syllables, Ma and Ya. Ma means not, and Ya means that which is. That which is not is called Maya. Even though it appears to exist, in truth it never was, right? For example, if I were to see in the desert a mirage, right? So I see the water. But as I get closer, I realize, it was just the sun, there's no water there. That water never was there. Even though it appeared like it was there, there's no water there. That's called Maya. It's just an appearance, but it has no truth to it at all. So this world, in relation to the world, the self is called the witness. But when we realize the world is Maya, it has no reality, then there's just the witness, and when there's just the witness, it's not a witness. It's just pure consciousness. He's the witness when something appears. He's not the witness when nothing appears. It's kind of like the sun. Suppose there's a snake in a hole. This is the sun. The snake comes out and you go, oh, the sun lit up the snake. Then he went back in, oh, the sun's not lighting up the snake. But the sun didn't change one drop. It's only in relation to this. We're saying, oh, he's doing it, he's lighting it up, he's not lighting it up. We're witnessing, we're not witnessing as though it was some action that we're doing. We're lighting up the dream. But the dream is an appearance that has no existence. The only truth of the dream is you. So it's not even a witness. It's only a relative term. Good point. Yes.
I'm kind of curious about no dreams. I don't feel that I dream.
You don't ever dream
At nighttime, no.
at nighttime. During the day, daydreams.
No,
No daydreaming, no night dreaming.
no, not really. But I
Okay.
don't have any dream recall ever. Once in a blue moon.
You can remember a dream, probably when you were younger.
That I don't even remember. I remember that I might have had a dream last night.
Okay, how about when you were younger? Recurring dreams?
Very little.
Very little.
Nightmares?
Let me do this,
No nightmares.
if I may, special for you,
Okay.
the one person who doesn't dream. Does anyone else not dream? You don't remember your dreams recently, or you used to remember them, now you don't? You never remember them.
No, I was talking about.
did at one
Okay.
point.
Are we talking about remembering dreams or dreaming? Because there's a
Well,
difference.
if you're dreaming but you don't remember it, then you don't know if you dreamt or not.
Right after I wake up, I remember the dream,
You
but then I don't.
Right
then
after you
it's
wake
gone.
up, but she doesn't even do that. So, we're gonna solve your problem. Because
I don't think it's a
the
problem,
reason, it is, oh, you see, the reason I love waking, dream, and deep sleep is because I feel that it's such a common experience for everyone. I don't have to pull on any experience that most people haven't had. Just by examining our common experience,
Yes.
we can come to understand the very unusual fact that I'm different than the States. The States are coming and going. But let me do one other experiment that you don't need the dream. You're going to go into a dream right now. Follow my finger. Let's do this experiment. With our eyes, we can see this flower, yes? Okay. It's kind of like waking. When I'm awake, I see a flower with my gross eyes, and there's a gross thing there, and I see this flower. Let's call that waking. Now, if I close my eyes, and in my mind's eye, if you know what I mean, I imagine the flower. Can you picture the sunflower in your mind's eye? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, the impression that you had from the waking sunflower, now you close your eyes and the mental impression is there and you can see it, right? Okay, now okay. Two things. One thing is that this is the same as a dream. You don't have to have a dream because dreams are just mental, right? You saw your friend during the waking, then you went to sleep and you're dreaming that you're talking to him, right? So he's there in front of you, the impression. So forget that, we'll do this right here. I see that, now I close it, now I see it. That's the equivalent. You're the witness of that flower, yes?
Yes.
Just like you're the witness of a whole dream. You don't have to have a dream. Open your eyes, waking. Close your eyes, any object you see, dream. Now here's the tricky part, without even going to sleep. Take the flower away. That's deep sleep.
Right.
You don't have to go to sleep. Right now, waking, dream, deep sleep. In the waking, you can do this business. That the witness that is witnessing my whole waking, and when I close my eyes, the same witness that's witnessing the image, if you can just do the mental gymnastic of making believe that image goes,
Right.
deep sleep. The whole thing's in the witness. Outside, inside, nothing. gross, subtle, nothing. That's the real way to do it, because in truth, nobody can remember their deep sleep. People think they remember deep sleep, but guess what? The waking ego wasn't in deep sleep, was he?
So I
So
just
how
go right
could he
to deep
remember
sleep.
it? I'm sorry?
So I just go right to deep sleep and deep sleep until I get up.
When you say, I woke up and I said, how you sleep? I slept great, I didn't know anything. Yes? So when you say, I didn't know anything, you're just denying the thing. Not that I know. I didn't know anything.
Right.
I knew the dream. I knew the waking. I didn't know anything. You're not denying your consciousness. You're denying that you were aware of any object of consciousness. I'm not aware of anything. I'm aware of the image, that's dream. I'm aware of the gross, that's waking. I'm awareness first and last.
Right.
Make any sense?
No, you lost me there for a second. I mean,
Ah.
to describe to you what I'm doing doesn't necessarily mean that that's...
When I asked you your experience, so how was your sleep? You said,
I don't know, I just wake up,
yeah, I didn't, I went to bed, it was 10 o'clock, now it's the morning, and in between, God knows what happened, right? You weren't aware of anything.
Right. That's what you said.
So when you say that, I say, on what basis?
Oh.
Because my experience is that I wasn't
I see
aware
what
of
you're saying.
anything.
Yes, right.
And I'm saying, most people say, oh, so in deep sleep I'm unconscious. Unconscious when I'm awake, unconscious kind of when I'm dreaming, and I'm unconscious in deep sleep. But I'm saying here, you're conscious when you're awake, you're conscious when you're dreaming, and when they both disappear, you're still just pure consciousness,
Right.
but you're not aware of anything. That consciousness never changes. In any state, at any time, it's always present.
So it's a trick when you ask, right? Because I mean, I would believe that already anyway. You know what I'm saying, what you're saying?
You wouldn't believe it anyway.
Well, yeah. Yes.
It's a hard sell for most
You
people.
know. Not talk stuff.
The thing about waking dream and deep sleep and remembering your experience of dream, you see, really you can't even remember dream. We think we remember, but I'm going to tell you a subtle thing. Some people might appreciate this. In the waking state, waking time and space appears. Yes? In the waking, you got waking time and space.
Yeah.
As soon as the dream appears, you get the dream time and dream space. Yes? But to say that first there was waking and then there was dream, as though one followed the other, there would have to be a time in which this state was and this state, right? And one followed the other. But if waking time is in waking state and the dream time is in the dream state, how can you say they follow each other? They're not in time. And therefore, since your dream wasn't an event in the past, you can't remember it. It's like in a dream, you're telling your friend, hey, you know, I had this crazy dream last night. I thought I was on Mars and it was unbelievable. Oh, yeah, really? What a dream. And then you wake up. Then you realize what you thought was waking was also a dream, and your memory of the dream that you had the night before was also a dream. You can't remember the states because the states are not events in time.
So,
That's one reason.
the other aspect that I have experienced in my own experience is that when in your waking state and you consciously are yoked, that there's no need to dream.
Absolutely. Let me say this. If somebody can understand the fact that their consciousness right now is pervading everything, is the warp and woof of everything, and is the only reality of it all, you don't have to consider dream or deep sleep. Most people can't do that. In order to make
It
it...
just happens, though, it just kind of, I mean, for me, it has just
You
happened.
can see that in the waking. For most people, it's very hard because I think that I'm a conscious thing here, you're conscious there, there's many consciousnesses, but in the dream, we can see there's one consciousness for the whole dream. Most people can see, that dream see that. Just like the flower, you're the only consciousness. So if there were many people appearing in the dream, you're the only. But here, I feel that I'm an individual consciousness. You're a conscious being. You're a you conscious. So, and we can go like this. But the dream makes it easier to see that there's just one consciousness for all the states. But it is true. If you have the capacity, the waking state is sufficient.
All right. Thank you. Whether I'm changing or you're the same, I'm not sure, but I thought your presentation tonight was more clear than ever for me. You mentioned going inward, the way you always do, as a way of reaching your true self. And I assume that the most common way to do that is through meditation. And maybe that's not so, but it is. And since most of us live in ignorance and can't go to India for 6 months, or don't choose to, are there any other ways that you believe are available, aside from meditation, to reach in?
Meditation is definitely one of the ways. Attending talks like this couldn't hurt. Reading books about this subject are very helpful because all of these things, this talk, meditation, reading the books like this, they all have the tendency to throw the mind back. You pick up a Nisargadatta book, you pick up a Gene Klein book, or any. As you're reading it, the mind gets that inward thing, that inward turn. That's the real spiritual journey. That's the most important thing. If anything, spirituality is not getting a new name, getting a secret mantra. The real spiritual thing, if anything, is this, the spiritual faculty of the mind. The mind has so many faculties, intellectual, emotional, you can rational, intuitive, but it also, unlike that, because the intellectual capacity is of no use here. Einstein didn't know he was the witness. He had a bigger intellect than all of us. It's not a question of how smart you are. It's not the emotional faculty. Oh, I love God. I love God. I'm going to surrender to God. Oh, I'm going to go. Oh, flat. Did you see me? I was on the floor in front of God. That's an emotional faculty. But other than these faculties, the mind does have the capacity to turn in. That's called the spiritual faculty. That's the faculty, the muscle of the mind that we have to start. It doesn't want to do it. The mind doesn't want to go that way because the happiness is there, no happiness. But the more the mind turns in and starts to get a taste of the happiness of your own self, the mind just wants to go where happiness is. So the more that it becomes convinced that there's no happiness out there, and the only real happiness is here, the mind will become more, just naturally go that way. But that's the whole thing. So whether it's reading, listening, meditating, contemplating, they call it Shravana, Manana, Nidhyasana. In our ignorance, we don't know how to get out of this mess. So the only way is to hear somebody point this out. After having it pointed out, you don't need the teacher anymore because it's a fact that you can reflect on. What did he say? I'm the witness of my ego? Okay, well, is that true? You can reflect on it, and then you can even meditate on it in a certain way. And there are books on it, and these are all the things that will spiritualize your life, that will make your life, rather than just a matter of getting and accumulating and getting old and dying. You know, I don't want to belittle the empirical life of people that are artists and authors and doing great things, helping the poor and humanity. It's all valid and wonderful. But the spiritual life is different. And it's an inner life. And it's an inner faculty that has to be used. And anything that allows us to do that, by examining the defects of the outside things, so that the mind can get a little bit of dispassion. As long as we're just so thirsty for everything outside of us, there's no way that you can make any progress on this. So a little bit of dispassion. What would be wonderful is if you could meet a person in this world that seemed happy and content, and they seemed like they didn't hardly have anything. It would kind of be proof for us that you don't need, that our real happiness is not to be found outside, but the real happiness is only in our own nature. Once we're convinced of that, the mind will go in that way. The mind wants to be happy, but it's convinced the happiness is out there. Meditation, listening, reading. I'll give one more thing. Our diet is somewhat important in how our mind works. If you eat like a pig, your mind will not only be sluggish, but it won't be sharp and discriminative. This discrimination between the witness and the witnessed, because especially the ego is so conscious, we're sure that this I is the conscious entity, I am conscious. It's like fire and a piece of metal. You took a piece of metal, you put it in the fire, it's just black metal. You put it in the fire, you take it out, now it's glowing. Where's the metal and where's the fire? They become like one. To discriminate them is like separating milk from water. When you put water into milk and I say, can you just give me the milk and give me... There was a special swan, it's called a Paramahamsa. He had a special beak and he could separate the milk from the water. We need that beak to separate the self from the not self. That subtle intellect. And so it does take some practice. When you walk out of here now, I guarantee you nobody's going to remember a word I said.
That's not true. That's not true.
It was good that you acknowledged the empirical world.
Of course.
But, and I would add to that, they are not mutually exclusive. In
That's
fact,
true.
the spiritual world can enhance the empirical world.
I'll say one more thing about the empirical world, if I may, which is that when you realize that you are that, you'll be that. Because you are that. So what do you mean you'll be that? You are that, so when you realize it, you are that. You'll be that. In Sanskrit it's called Brahmavid, Brahma Bhavati. The knower of that absolute is the absolute. That's the real thing. But what is that? Where does that lead? So suppose I realize, oh, I'm the absolute, so I'm the absolute. What about this body and mind? Is it going to drop dead? Is it going to disappear? No, it'll still be here. So look, this body, mind, and senses is not the witness. But it's a very special one now. Because now this body, mind, senses, he's no longer jealous of you. He doesn't want anything from you. He knows that about this. And he also may know the way to tell it to other people. So now, from a practical, empirical point of view, he can do wonderful things in the world. He can help people. This body, the self, there's nobody to help. He doesn't want to help any. But this ego that has now understood that could be loving in the most unconditional way. You know why? Because he sees the other as himself. I never get angry at this hand. You know why? It's me. This guy doesn't know you're... This is me. I can get angry at anything outside. So when I see everybody as myself, unconditional love, more than even the parent for the child. That's unconditional, but they still know the child is not me. But here, you are me. How can I hate you? How can I be jealous of you? You're me. That's on the practical level. You see anyone who says, I realize the truth, but I hate you, and I'm jealous of you. Wow. I think that's it
So
for tonight.
before we end, I want to thank you.